Good morning. Busy week. A lot of stuff going on. I was not paying attention to YouTube across the board, actually. I didn't watch any of my subscriptions or anything like that, so I've got a lot to catch up on, obviously. Not the least of which was what would probably be the last round of the fake drama stuff going on. And just to kind of put a final nail in a coffin so far as I'm concerned, I wanted to talk about a scientific paper that's 10 years old and a paper that I was writing with a friend the following year and try and explain how gaslighting works and how the phenomenon of projection allows folks to create the impression that something is going on, but the impression, the perception is the opposite of reality. So let's go through the stuff on screen. So for those of you who don't want to read, just want to listen to me blab in the background, I'll make sure to read the stuff that's important. So the paper came out in 2011. It was called Wishful Thinking, Belief, Desire, and the Motivated Evaluation of Scientific Evidence. And the intent of the paper was to look at whether a person's opinion on a topic was going to shift or change at all based on a review of scientific literature on the topic. In this case, it was about parents who either were considering or currently considering or future considering the use of home care versus child care. And I'll link the paper in the description just for those who want to go look at the full thing. In case I butcher the, the setup of the experiment, please correct me on that. Anyway, they wanted to look at whether or not the people's opinions on scientific evidence were influenced by their initial position, whether or not the initial state was what influenced the way that they looked at data the most, and I'll get to how that affects. I should probably look up the Bible verse on that too. If I have time, maybe while I'm blabbing, I'll look that up. Anyway, the discussion, though, says evaluations of purported scientific evidence were shaped more by what participants desired to be true than by what they had initially believed to be true. Conflicted participants who planned to use daycare for their children but initially believed such care to be markedly inferior to home care interpreted ambiguous scientific evidence in a manner congruent with their desire to believe that their plans would not be disadvantageous for their children. After they examined mixed scientific evidence, these conflicted participants shifted their beliefs and considered home care to be no better than daycare. By contrast, after exposure to the same mixed evidence, unconflicted participants, those who shared the same initial belief in the superiority of home care and intended to use only home care when they became parents, maintained their strong initial belief. Further investigation is needed to determine whether our findings are generalizable to other important domains in which hopes, fears, needs, and other motivational factors combine with or compete with prior beliefs as people confront scientific evidence and discourse. Now, with respect to gaslighting, there is a relationship that is established between the person being gaslit and the person doing the gaslighting. If there isn't a relationship, then there's no way for what the one person who's trying to gaslight says to make a difference. It's irrelevant. It's meaningless. They're talking to the wind. It's moot. That kind of a thing. So there needs to be some sort of a relationship there. And there need to be existing beliefs about the way things are, and then there need to be desires involved, what people want to be true. And so that's where when people are gaslighting, it's often best to lead with an accusation instead of a question. Instead of saying something like, hey, can you help explain this or that, or can you help me understand what you mean by this, that, or the other, or um, asking a question and then giving folks an opportunity to provide an answer. The first thing you do is you attempt to set the framing by making an accusation. You are such and such, or you think such and such, or you believe such and such. This then sets up an initial belief, and then it starts the clock on how people's desires are then going to play out. So some people are going to respond to an accusation like that as if it were something that they don't want, something that's indifferent, like, whatever about that accusation rings true or not, people will then respond to. And if they're making an accusation about somebody, then sometimes if people want that to be true about themselves or don't want that to be true about themselves, then they're going to respond in kind. So starting with that, again, understanding that what this little paper found, and again, it's just one piece of paper, so but if what people desire is more important than even the evidence at hand in this particular case, then again, when you're gaslighting folks, knowing what they might desire is going to give you a window into how to effectively gaslight them, how to effectively try to manipulate them, and you only get that through a relationship. There already has to be something established in order for that to be effective at an individual level. We see mass gaslighting with respect to politics and social issues and all that kind of stuff. But in large part, that's because people have a relationship with the sources that are gaslighting them. People have a relationship with their government. People have a relationship with the news media and all that kind of stuff. We don't exist in a vacuum. But amusingly, people who have created distance for themselves, who do not have as close a relationship, are not as affected by the manipulation techniques. And so the way that you deal with that, the way that you deal with these kinds of attempts, is not to dig in further, is not to engage the person further and to break the gaslighting. It doesn't work that way. If people are going to want to believe something, they're going to believe it whether evidence comes in to disprove that belief or not. And in my case, I had a recent video where I talked about patterns. And that's part of why I brought up this whole thing. There was, at one point, a friend and I were arrogant enough to think that we were going to write a book. And we'd started writing it in Google something or other. I forget what it's called. Anyway, I had found that earlier this week when I was working on a different project in that tool. I think it's Google Docs. I started using it again for a different reason, then I stumbled across this. I was like, oh, I don't remember what this is, and I saw the date on it, and I saw the things that I was talking about. And so I'll go ahead and I'll read that right off the bat, or now. So it was a guide to life and relationships, because college-aged kids are not good at humility and really understanding that they don't understand much of anything. Not that I'm any less dumb today, but still. So the introduction, we said, life is complicated. There are very few answers and a lot of questions. Even in that uncertainty, though, there are patterns. Patterns aren't end-all answers, but they help in seeing how things are or could get this way. It is very rare that any situation is confined to its own circumstances. So here's the thing. I've been talking about patterns since at least 2012. I've had that as a part of my worldview, that there are patterns all over the place. And so a new accusation that, oh, well, I'm now talking about patterns because of a specific person or a specific circumstance, it highlights a self-centeredness that was amusingly the point of the video. I run into people who are certain that they are the center of the universe. And I know I'm not. And I know that trying to become that would be futile. It's a waste of time. I don't deserve to sit on that throne, so to speak. The worth that I have is not determined by my efforts. What I do can't change that stuff. And so I don't bother trying to establish or evaluate or justify my worth based on my own works. It's the same way that my salvation is not based on my works. My value doesn't come from me or something I could say or do. My value comes from what the scriptures say about me, from what God would say about me, from what Jesus Christ said about humanity in general. We don't deserve to be loved, or we don't deserve the grace and mercy that God showed in love to us. We didn't deserve to be created in the first place. We don't deserve a lot of that stuff. And so for me to then try and turn around and try and like psych myself out, like, ooh, maybe I can manipulate myself into thinking that, maybe somehow, I could still, it doesn't work. But I do see in Genesis what's called, the imago Dei. Man is created in God's image. So there's something about me that was created by God on purpose. And there are talents and gifts that God can give me. And it's not through the navel gazing that those things would actually have value. It's in their application. It's in actually using what God has given me to do something that would have value. So it's not me. I didn't define it. I didn't set the terms. I don't get to pick. I am along for the ride, so to speak. But here's the thing, though. This is the thing that I've noticed. When we genuinely submit to what God is doing, we find ourselves in that. We find ourselves in the plan that God has for us because God knows who we are. He knows what our proclivities are, what our preferences are. And so, and he knows them better than we do. So if I'm selfish and arrogant enough to think I can figure out what I need and what I want better than God, then I would be participating in navel gazing all the time. I've got to sort this out or sort that out. I've got to fix my problems. I got to do all this, that, and the other. But that's not how real life works, or at least not in a healthy and constructive and mature manner. In real life, it's, okay, God, I don't get a lot. I don't understand a lot of things, and I need your help. God, I have sinned. I have done things which were contrary to what you would have desired for me, and I need forgiveness. That's where worth comes from. That's where value comes from, is that I'm not just saying those things into empty space, but there's a God who has already promised that says, look, if you confess your sins, I will be faithful and just and forgive you your sins and purify you from all unrighteousness. So my value is not in trying to scrounge through my own dirty laundry and find something, some gem hidden in there. It's in giving God all of the dirty laundry and saying, look, God, I don't know what to do with any of this. I am a sinner. I can't figure this out on my own. What is it you, God, want me to do? Lord, what is your will for me in this particular circumstance? That's where value comes from. That's where, So, again, so back to this whole like gaslighting and all that kind of stuff. I am going to try and look up the verse. It goes something along the lines of, everybody is convinced until they hear the second half of the story or something like that. It's in Proverbs. Everybody thinks they know the story. They know until I can't remember I probably should have looked this up first before I started recording, but story. Yeah, I'm totally butchering the verse, so I'm not going to be able to find it. Proverbs, evaluating Accusations. Here we go. Here's some topical stuff. Oh, here's a fun one. Not technically related, but it's funny nonetheless, given the circumstances. Evidence that some people can't handle subtlety. But as for you, it says Genesis 50:20. It says, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about, as it is this day, to save many people alive." So here's that's Genesis 50 as well. So this is even prior to Christ. There was a pattern where God would use the evil acts of others to bring about good in your particular life. That what other people think is a curse is actually a blessing. Let's see here. Nope, that's not all of it. Yeah, I'm not going to find it. Oh, here we go. Nope, can't find it. All right. Oh well. Maybe I'll try and find it some other time. Anyway, in this particular case, though, again, the way to dispel an attempt at gaslight, to deal with projection, is not to head it face on. Is not to treat it as earnest and genuine in the first place, because it's not. It's not earnest and it's not genuine. People are looking for a bad guy. People are desperate for some sort of a release, somebody that they can point the finger at and condemn. Because let's face it, there's been a lot of frustration. A lot of people have been getting away with a lot of things of late, and it's really tough if you have a mind that is oriented towards the pursuit of justice. It's really tough to see all of these things happening, and yet there be no apparent consequence. We see the things that are going on with the pandemic. We see things that are going on with politics. We see things that are going on in social circles with respect to like the Black Lives Matter and critical race theory and all that kind of stuff. We see all sorts of sin, and we see all sorts of pain that we experience because of that, but we don't have an outlet for that pain. And so what happens then is that we run across somebody that reminds us of that pain, or that reminds us of our own failures. And because they remind us of that, by default, we think that they are like us. Most people by default are projecting all the time. We presume that other people are doing a particular thing for the same reasons that we would be doing it, or they're not doing a particular thing for the same reasons that we would not be doing it. And it's very hard to break that. It's very hard to get out of your own head and really try to understand that other people aren't the same as you, and that other people are not identical copies, and so you can understand them just because you understand yourself. You got to ask questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of that? You got to build a relationship, and then you have to let it grow over time, because a lot of times people are very guarded. They put on a show when they are around folks they don't know very well. They're not themselves, in so many words. Lost train of thought, but I'm going to run with it anyway. Yeah. So you can't face that kind of stuff head on. When somebody comes at you with accusations, it's possible that it has something to do with that person, but we can't know for sure. Like I said, people are looking for an outlet. People are looking for a release, a boogeyman, a bad guy. And I forget where all I have talked about this, but it's my personal opinion that part of seeding division in the culture and in the people is priming for that sort of a dynamic. It's getting everybody ready to have a bad guy to then justify doing whatever they want. If there is a villain and I'm the hero, then I can do whatever I need to go and do, and to defeat that bad guy. Ugh. and I'm justified, because I'm the good guy, right? And that's the bad guy. The problem is that in the grand scheme of things, we were the bad guys, and Christ is the only good guy. This is part of why I don't try to bring a lot of my personal details and opinions into some conversations. I have discussions with people on various topics, and I might disagree, I might agree, but I don't want me to be the focus of the conversation, because I'm not the one that's important in the grand scheme of things. I'm not the one that people need to know about. It's not me that's important, and that's a good thing. It's like that would be a burden if I were dumb enough to try and shoulder it. If I were thinking that it was on me to save somebody else, or that it was because of something I said or did that somebody else could be saved or damned. If I was shouldering that kind of a burden, then that would be inappropriate. That would be unhealthy, and that's where I had gotten the idea for Atlas, was that I saw the temptation there. And I saw a lot of other people actually declaring out loud, like not some private, oh, I'm guessing, I know exactly what's going on with them. They're saying out loud, we have to do this, we have to do that. This is our responsibility, this is our duty, this is our, so on and so forth. People were saying out loud, explaining themselves. And what I saw is that they were taking on burdens that were not meant for them to carry. It was a works-based salvation applied externally. Well, my works are going to save somebody else. And it doesn't work that way. And that ends up creating a burden that people aren't meant to carry. And that's where I saw the figure of Atlas as an interesting analog to that. As a way to shortcut the package deal, so to speak, all the details that are associated with that story, in trying to describe the type of pattern that somebody could find themselves stuck inside of. I recognize the temptation because I've been tempted by it. So it's projection in the sense that I've experienced it. It's not projection in the sense that I've had other people state things out loud in a public space that indicate that other people are at the minimum also tempted by shouldering that burden, whether they're supposed to or not, whether they should or not. And so again, it's real easy for folks to make an accusation, to set the frame of a conversation, and to get a good amount of motivation. And that was part of why, even if I had the time this week, I don't think it would have been a good idea for me to respond to anything, just to let it play out. Like let it, like they say that the news cycle is a 3-day cycle. So the news comes up, whatever the topic is, is in the news for 3 days, and then it dies out. Well, for the same reason that I often have trouble keeping up with other people's content. It's like sometimes my life gets busy, and I don't have time to play games, or go on YouTube and see what the next round of drama is. So I both consciously and unintentionally just didn't check into stuff, and then just to see what it came of it, what was going to happen, and then let it sit, and then I'll come in today in the morning, respond to stuff, maybe record a video, which is what you're hearing now, and just do a reset, so to speak, I guess, just to see what's going on. And is often the case, scoffers don't have much to offer. It's like a peacock. The plumage is very impressive, when it's up in the air, but it's very thin. It's an appearance. It's a show, and it's an impressive show. Don't get me wrong. There are some very impressive shows that have been put on in my comment section, certainly, but it's not the first place I've even seen that. This isn't even the first time that those types of interactions have occurred. This is just the first time that I've thought to actually record something. YouTube's been around for a long time. I can't remember when I created this account, but it's been around for a long time. It was the same thing with all the other social medias before I deleted them. They've been around for a long time, and I just was detached. There's still a blog out there somewhere. I'd post to it, every now and again, but I just was not devoted to these digital platforms. Um, could that be construed as cowardice? Sure. Call me a coward. Uh, I've been called worse. Um, and like, let me put it this way: like, I've been locked in a dog run and spat on by neighborhood kids. Like, what is somebody calling me a coward to that? Like, you want to talk about pain or hurt or something like that. Like, that was a painful experience, but I saw the emptiness in their eyes. I saw that what they were doing, it was to try and have this little clique, this little group of neighborhood kids who got along and did what they were wanting to do. And since I was just different enough, I was off enough, I was not in the circle enough, it was okay to treat me wrong. So even the nature of people using me as a lightning rod of sorts, of saying, well, here's a weird guy that we don't understand, so let's just use him as the dumping ground. Again, it's a pattern. I've seen it so many times before, and every time people think it's about them, every time people think it's always about them, how I then respond. It never seems to occur to people that I've been through this exact same scenario before, that I've seen this pattern before, that I've seen people who wear their pain on their sleeves, who don't hide that something is going on. I don't know what, I don't know the nature of it. But that's where, if I want a relationship, if I wanted to really know, I would have to ask questions. I would have to say, hey, why'd you do this? What's going on? That would be the response. That would be the relationship. That would be how we actually move forward and reconcile and do something constructive and have unity and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't come from, once again, finding someone to crucify and pretending that, oh, if we just tear this guy down, all of our problems are solved, because that's usually what ends up coming out of it, and may not be in this case. Don't know. I don't presume to know. But time and again, what I've seen is that people have used others as their outlet. They project their own problems out. They gaslight those people by starting the interactions with accusations. And now it's about the accusation, not about whether or not that's even accurate. And then it's all about, well, you're not facing the accusation. You're not treating me the way I blah, 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 blah. It's all about that person and not about even the nature of the accusation. Hey, look, if there's pain, if there's hurt, well, let's talk about it. Let's actually get it out. Let's resolve the pain. And not just by, like, sharing time, we're gonna, just talk about our struggles, that kind of stuff. Like, let's take it to the cross. Let's pray about it. Let's study the scripture to figure out how God has helped people solve this kind of problem before. Because here's the thing, this isn't new. Even all of the stuff we see with the pandemic, all of the dynamics are recycled. Everything is recycled in that respect. There is nothing new under the sun. And it's unfortunate that people appear to prefer the comfort of being stuck in that cycle than to ask God for the wisdom and the strength to break it. Or even just to ask God if it's worth being broken in the first place. Because maybe, like Joseph, maybe the series of bad things is part of preparing for something else. It's part of a more complicated narrative that God has in mind, where we're going to go through difficult times. I don't know. Either way, life is good. I genuinely cannot complain. Appreciate whoever does listen to this. If there's something I can pray for you about, please let me know. Otherwise, take care. God bless. Bye-bye.